Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speech Selling. This is the Raging Verbalist number 106. Hard to believe 106 of these have been put into the can. And if you haven't already done it, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification. You can also go to Facebook and you can go to Position to Win book group and you can go check it out there and you can follow me there. And as always, here's the ground rules. I don't do a lot of heavy political stuff. So if you're looking for that, you got to go somewhere else. But what I can tell you is that we're going to have an exciting topic today. I'll be doing a disclaimer before we get into it too deeply, but I'm going to bring on the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, how you doing?
I am all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. And for those of you who don't know, if you see that cool demeanor that Sandra portrays, years of training and going to, the right kind of schools and everything, because she is a torrent inside, having had technological meltdowns today, the things that she has said. But okay. Also, so here's a little quick disclaimer, which is what we're going to share with you today. Though it is financial in nature, I am not a financial analyst. I am not a registered person. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to make you aware of some stuff. You do everything at your own risk. You got to figure out whether this works for you or not. But this is like one of those things that was like so cool. We had to talk about it. So and that's why we're doing it. So I just want everybody to know that. So if anybody goes, but wait a second, I went out and I bought we have great stories about stupid shit that people bought. This isn't it. So okay. So there you go. I don't know if that's a real legitimate disclaimer, but it's close enough. So Sandra, ask the first question, please.
All right. So drum roll, please. What is an ibond?
So we are talking about ibonds. And for those of you who don't know, this is a U.S. government instrument. It is like a savings bond. They used to have, and they still do, they have what are called the EE bonds. And I don't know if it's because the feet were so wide or whatever, but anyway, but what people would do is that granny would buy you one for $10 or $20. And the cool part about it is that they were actually sold. If grandma bought you $100 bond, and actually she only paid like $50, and you had to hold it forever to maturity for it to actually get to $100. So it's kind of cool, and all of that. And it was started way back in the 40s. And but today we have this thing called an ibond, and an ibond is a really interesting bond, and it's an interesting bond for anybody who wants to go have a good, safe, I think a very safe investment. And here's the pluses. Let me tell you what an ibond is. An ibond is an inflation. So it's not like an iPhone, an iPad, an iMac, so it has nothing to do with Apple. They didn't buy the US government or anything while you were sleeping. But what it is an ibond. I stands for inflation. So therefore it pays based upon the rate of inflation. And for those of you who are listening to this contemporaneously, you know that inflation has kicked up. If you don't, then you have not been to a store, purchased gas, or gotten an electric bill. So that means, how do you even have the internet so you can watch this? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you that. So this is inflation-oriented bonds, and they're very cool. Right now, they're paying, and I just don't want to hold back because I know everybody wants to know, they're paying 7.12% right now. And by the way, you can buy them directly from the Treasury. That's where you get them. And that's why nobody will tell you about them. So that's kind of a quick introduction. Did I leave anything out on the intro on what an ibond is? Sandra, step in here. Talk to me. Tell me, are we there?
I think so. I think you got it.
Okay. All right.
So dive in a little further. Why do these exist?
So when they first put in the savings bond program, it was designed for people literally to buy government debt and not pay commission. By the way, you don't have to pay state income tax. So if you live in a high tax state, and if you don't know that you're in a high tax state, then maybe, maybe, put the bottle of Jack down for a moment and sober up. But, but if you're in a high tax state, that's a nice little bonus. You do pay federal income tax, but they exist because this is based upon the, how do we get people to invest in debt for long term? The term of these currently is 30 years. Doesn't mean you have to hold them for 30 years. Okay. So everybody take a deep breath, maybe get it, maybe we should have said, get like a little, brown lunch bag so you could breathe in and out in this thing, because some of this stuff can be a little shocking to your system. But what it is that the government wants a way for small investors. And let me tell you that they built these as a hedge against inflation, which for the longest time has been slim, none, and nil. But that is no longer the case, because what we're dealing with now is some serious ass inflation. And in fact, when I first heard about these, they were yielding right about 3.5% back in July of 2021. Every 6 months they adjust, and they adjust based upon the inflation rate. If you go on the website, which is like the treasury.gov, and look for the ibonds, and that's the only way to buy them, and this is why nobody tells you about them, is that they'll give you exactly how the formula works. So there is a fixed rate that's paid through the life of the bond, and then there's a variable rate on top of that, which is based upon inflation. So it has nothing to do with interest rates going up or down. It has to do with inflation, and inflation is, adjusted for the consumer price index it says for all urban consumers. So that would be, for those of you who are techno people or nerds, that would be the CPI-U index that they're referencing. So therefore you can figure it out on your own, or you can just go to the website and see it. So they exist because they were always trying to figure out how to keep this program viable. And here's the really reason why it's viable, is that if you buy them electronically, you can put in as little as $25, and all $25 goes to the investment. You don't pay tax. You don't pay taxes. If you check the right box, you don't pay taxes until you cash them in. You have to keep them at least 5 years, or there's a prepayment, or there's a penalty, which is a small penalty, but we'll get to more of that later. But the reality of it is they exist because the government is trying to incentivize people to save money and put money away and do it in a nice way. Now, being the government, even though they're giving money away here in a very big way, because again, the formula was set long ago, virtually nobody knows about this. So hopefully this video actually spurs people to go do something with it, because I think these are rather incredible for a variety of uses.
So kind of hearing about it for the first time, someone may think this is too good to be true. So how can it actually give like this high of returns?
So yeah, and it sounds too good to be true. And if you actually had somebody, pitching you this on the phone, you'd be pretty skeptical, because right now, for those of you who don't track this, but the 30-year treasury, right? This is a 30-year instrument. That's a 30-year instrument. The 30-year treasury, which trades in the trillions of dollars, is at 1.77% according to the treasury.gov website for December 1. So that's 1.77, and we're at 7.12. So this is not a hoax. This is not a joke, but there are lots of limitations. First and foremost is that you can only put in $10,000 maximum per year per Social Security number. That means if you have 3 kids and they all have Social Security numbers, and you get them $10,000, or they have $10,000, they could actually buy that under their Social Security number. Check with your advisor, check with the government, but that's how I read the website. So when it sounds too good to be true, it's because it was set up at a time where no one expected these kind of volatile inflation changes to take place so dramatically. And if anybody tells you that this is transitory, No, we went from 3.5, a little over 3.5% in earlier this year to 7.12% on the bond. That's quite significant. So there's restrictions, and the restrictions are you can't put, I mean, if banks could put money into this, they would put trillions of dollars, and the government wouldn't do it. So this is designed, one of the few things that is designed for, the little people. And I'm not trying to talk about little people like little people. I'm talking about those of financial means that are not huge. And that's the pretty cool part about this, that it is viable for them. And right now this is significant return for anybody. And anybody who says it's too good to be true, go check it out at treasury.gov. Again, I don't get anything out of it. Sandra doesn't get anything out of it. We don't get anything out of it. But I just want to make sure that people know about it, because this is like such a cool opportunity. Now, people will say, but John, won't they shut it down at some point in time? Yeah, maybe they want to change the formula, but my guess is not, because my guess is that they don't get enough people that will blow this up. Maybe all these people rush to the door and spend money, and then they think about changing the formula. But for right now, I think it's very secure. And by the way, here's one of the best parts about government debt. For those of you who don't know a lot about debt, is that if you have a corporate bond, usually it is what is called callable. And callable means that at the convenience of the company, if interest rates change, if circumstances change, they can basically buy the bonds back and force you to sell. Government bonds are in fact non-callable debt. And that is one of the things that always makes them very special. And I will tell you a short story about how things could have been, which is my father-in-law sold his house and had the biggest chunk of dough he ever had in his life. Interest rates on 30-year treasuries or treasury bonds were sitting at all-time highs. Right now, they're at 1.77. Well, he could have, didn't do it. He could have done it. And it was 17.5%. Once again, he could have bought them directly from the government without paying any commissions whatsoever. And he decided that he was going to go talk to his banker. And he went and talked to the bank, and the bank said, well, and his name happened to be John also. They said, John, I'll tell you what, we're going to give you a 5-year CD, certificate of deposit, for those who don't know what a CD is, because they might think CD is a little plastic disc, but certificate of deposit, and we'll throw in a color TV. And they paid him 12% instead of 17.5%. So he effectively lost, if it was $100,000, he lost $5,500 a year every year that he had that CD. And by the way, by the time that CD matured, interest rates had dropped significantly. What would have happened to the bond is that the bond would have appreciated in value, which would have been amazing, but it would have continued to pay 17.5% for the entire 30-year stretch. It isn't quite as sweet as what that point in time was, but this is quite acceptable at 7.12%. Next one, Sandra. Hopefully it's not so many numbers that people are like going, what? What is this guy saying? Yeah, huh?
All right. So how long do you think we can expect to see this high of a rate? And then if inflation goes back down, then wouldn't it not earn anything? So, why should someone invest in it?
So there's a couple things that we can sort out. So first off, there's a base rate. So it's always going to pay a base rate. You have to go online to figure out what that is. All right. And then there's the variable rate, and that variable rate always gets tacked on top. And because of that, what you'll see is that I don't believe it's ever going to pay, but it might. I mean, again, I can't predict the future, but I think that inflation isn't going to go to negative. So if it went to negative, then there would be a problem. But as long as there's inflation of some kind, these always pay above average rates of return. Right now, because of the way inflation is sitting today, I don't believe it's transitory. I believe that it's going to continue on, and you're going to see rates continue at a pretty, these rates continue for a period of time. If inflation went to zero, the bonds would go down. Again, you can always opt out. You can sell them early and pay the penalty, which is, according to the website, 3 months of interest, which is really not that big a deal, if you felt that way. But for the most part, the answer is no. You could, I think it's going to outperform and do very well. And again, it's just, to me, it's quite an anomaly to have these right now.
So what about those who say, can't the S&P 500 just outperform it?
So quick lesson, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just, a person who's done a lot of different business deals in my life. If you can find a great portfolio, in all likelihood, you may be able to outstrip this and you may be able to do fairly well. And all of that makes a lot of sense if you want to play the equities market. But I would point out to anybody who's thinking about doing this is whatever portfolio you have, having, a few $1,000 or $10,000 in these kinds of debt is not a bad idea. It's not a bad hedge, because again, these are tied, and this is where it changes. See, as interest rates go up, bonds go down. In this case, it's tied to inflation, so it's a different type of index. So the likelihood of it going down is, very different model. Also, it's hard to invest really small amounts of money into the stock market and have them work. You can do that through mutual funds, obviously. You can do a lot of those kinds of things, but I'm going to tell you right now that when the market fell off the cliff last year and there was lots of buying opportunities, many people who I know and talk to, I couldn't find a single one that was dancing and saying, wow, what a great time to invest in the stock market, mutual funds, or individual stocks, or anything. I mean, most people were just sitting there horrified because they were wondering if the world was going to come to an end.
All right. So at what age do you invest in it if the stock market
Well, before we get to that.
Okay. I'm just so excited about ibonds. I need to know more.
Exactly. She can't wait. But we're just going to have to have her whole
All right.
horses there for, pull back on the reins just a little bit there. So before we do that, I can give you an investment that's only $24.95 plus tax and shipping, of course, or you can buy it through Amazon. And that is my book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to win. And this investment could be worth significantly more than 7.1% a year, assuming you actually do something with it. So you can go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. You can buy it there and you can get me to sign it. We do have copies that have come in. We now have copies in. Again, we had sold out. We were out of copies. Also, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and get the physical book. You can also get the digital copy, and you can get that through Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, and Apple iBooks. So, okay, let's let her out of the gate. She is ready. She is rambling. She is going. So.
All right. So at what age do you invest in it if the stock market could outperform it?
Well, once again, most people don't really have a strategy of how to invest their money. And the nice part about this type of investment, since you can put small amounts of money, is that you can put that in there and know that it's going to perform for you. And the cool stuff is that, so let's say you put money into a mutual fund, and it's a really, and we'll just call it KA for kick-ass mutual fund, KAM, kick-ass, KAMF. You gotta be careful with that MF thing. Anyway, KA for kick-ass. Let's just leave it at that. And you put your money in there. Every year you're going to have to do the accounting. Every year you're going to have to pay the taxes. Every year you're going to have to do that. Now you may say, but John, I'm going to have it into a, an IRA or a 401k or a Roth or what. Great, I understand that. But if you're looking for a way to supplement that, the nice part is you can put these away. Now, I think that if you have, especially in your family or in your arena of people that you deal with, maybe arena is not a way to say it, but anyway, a group of people,
you could have a large enough family for an arena, right?
Yeah,
you never know.
That's it. Yeah. But and the old farm days, you have to have arena. So.
People
But
with sister wives, you never know.
you never know. You
You
never
never
know.
know. Different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah, and that could be a topic for next week. We could talk about that.
There you go.
The key thing about age is that since this stuff can go on for 30 years before you have to cash them in, is that if you have somebody, a little tyke or something, and you're and grandma or grandpa or whoever wants to give some money, or do something, or you have some extra money, having your put these in that kid's name, in my mind, makes a lot of sense. And the sooner you get started saving money, the better. I can tell you that the old style bonds, because my grandparents on my father's side had virtually no money, but they bought bonds for me. And of course, I waited the appropriate number of years, cashed them in, and bought who knows what crap I bought. But I wasn't smart about it. But the first time I burned through a bunch of money. But the point of it is that they're a pretty cool way to do it. And the other thing is that it's harder for somebody to get to than racing down to the bank or having an ATM card associated with an account. So that's a good thing. And I am going to say this right now, since I am not a tax expert, there seems to be a way to utilize these to also pay for higher education, but there's a bunch of rules. Go to the government site, figure them out, talk to an accountant, figure them out. But there's a way to use that too. So they're pretty well put together. I like them. So start them young, start them young, start them young. But I don't think it's just for people who are young. I think it's for people who want a better return, because inflation is, chewing stuff up. I mean, I've got money in a money market account, and I just found out that it's paying, point, 3.35 is paying a little over a third of 1% a year. Wow. Woo. I'm really, wow.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Yeah. Well, you can't spend it all in one place because there's not enough.
All right. So how long do you have to hold it?
So maturity is 30 years. And what it says is basically you can hold it for 30 years, or you can hold it for a shorter period of time. The penalty for selling them or redeeming them, it's more like redeeming them back from the government, is 5 years. So you want to think about 5 years so you don't have to pay any penalties. The penalty is, I think, not onerous, fancy word for really bad. And that is that it is a 3-month interest. They clip you for 3 months worth of interest. So that's not terrible, but who wants to give up that yield if you don't need it? So yeah, you can hold them for up to 30 years. Again, the best part about it is that it can keep compounding. That's the other part, is that the interest rate, it compounds semi-annually. That's twice a year for those of you don't know what that phrase means. And you could literally just let them sit there and watch that money grow over time, and away you go.
Okay. And how do you go about actually purchasing these?
So what you do is you go to treasury.gov, and you make sure you're on the right site, and you'll know it because it looks like a site that was designed, I don't know, in the 90s or something. I mean, it's a standard government looking site. It's more functional than it used to be. And you get an account and you attach that account so you can do electronic transfer from another account. And you can then start buying them, and you end up with an account at the Treasury Department. And for those of you conspiracy people who are paranoid and worried that the government's going to know too much, they already do. So turn out the lights and get low, because the black helicopters are coming for you. So I don't worry about having, an account at the Treasury Department. And by the way, I think that makes it pretty darn safe. So you go and you buy it directly. And again, this is why we don't hear about it. It's why it's a secret. It's not really a secret, but it's really kind of a secret, is that nobody's getting paid any juice, VIG, commissions, however you want to call it. So nobody talks about it. And in fact, most of the advisors, my own CPA, who's really a whiz of a guy, when I told him about these, he's like, what? I've never heard of these. And that's because virtually no one talks about them.
All right. So how long can I expect to generate those returns?
Well, you know that we're going to get them for at least 6 months at a time. So every 6 months it's going to change. And then your question is how long are you going to get and have inflation? But overall, you're going to get a return every year for the next 30 years, and it's going to continue to process its way through and move your way through. For those of you who really want to learn how to do the math, is that again, there's a base rate, there's the inflation rate every 6 months, and I can actually give you exactly. Hang on, exactly. So, and by the way, you can also do this if you have a payroll service. You can say, I want to get direct deposit to the treasury and buy this. So what you can do is every don't see it easily, but every twice a year they adjust the rate. So it just adjusted and got to 7.12%. So I think you're going to be able to see those rates for quite some time. And the best news about it is, like I said, inflation is going to be here for a while. So why not make some extra money while you're watching everything else go down the drain?
That's right. All right. So what if I want to give ibonds as a gift? How do I do that?
So right on the website, and this is why I think this is pretty cool, because they've really, the government has really done a pretty decent job with this website, is they have a link that says, give it as a gift. They also have a link to pay for education and what you can do with it. So you can go online and check that out. And by the way, you don't even have to have an account to go pretty deep and get a lot of information. My suggestion is that you think about it, and you decide how you want to do it. And once you get it set up, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to give you a sense of why this is really kind of an interesting gift to give somebody, is that you're not going to give it to somebody who can then go and easily, spend it and do crazy stuff with it as money or gift cards. So if you're going to give somebody a $50 gift card, you give them this is going to be worth a lot more than $50 over the course of years. And long after they're off of the, caffeine sugar high from a Starbucks, macchia something this will still be producing little bits of income. And hopefully what it does is it inspires those that you give the gift to go out and open, because they'll have their own account, but to really start thinking about how they can put some money away and utilize it. Because like I said, it is very hard to take small pieces of money, $25 if you're going to do it electronically. By the way, you can do it with paper. They even still let you do it with paper, which is amazing. So if you want to have it physical, the minimum is $50. The maximum is $5,000 if you want to have a certificate. By the way, I would not necessarily recommend you do that for one simple reason, which is oftentimes people will lose these things. And people will go, hey, look, grandma had, several $1,000s worth of bonds sitting around in a drawer. I've seen it multiple times in my life. So that's pretty cool. I like it as a gift. I think it's a really cool idea. Probably not going to get as much excitement as a new video game or something like that. It's probably going to be somewhere between, socks and underwear and somewhere in that range. But what you want to explain to people is that, especially if it's to someone younger, is that this is going to be money that's going to grow, and this is going to be money they're going to have down the road. So I think that's a real positive. All right, Sandra, what is your last question? What have you got on your mind? What haven't we covered? We've covered a bunch. What do you have? Come on.
Gosh.
Putting her on the spot.
One comment is, this isn't going to get stuck on a ship in the bay. I mean, come on.
Well,
don't have to worry about shipping delays for Christmas. It's boom right there. You got it.
So that Sandra, you were able to work that one in. I
had to say it.
Well, and I think so. Yeah. So you're not gonna have to worry about if it's going to arrive or not. That's true. And then the other part about it is that long after whatever you gave somebody has faded from memory, unless it was a very personal item, and we won't go there. But unless it was something that's very personal, people are going to remember that you did this. People are going to remember that you gave this. And I think it also establishes a mindset of, in fact, how do you get people to start saving money and putting money away and taking care of it? We live in such a, rapid bang bang culture. This is not like giving them a Bitcoin. I mean, if you want, you can give them a Bitcoin, I guess. 60 something, whatever it is today, $60,000, whatever it is. But the point of it is that this is something that's very solid, very substantial, and it's a nice thing. It's there, and it's going to help people out, and it's going to take them there where they want to go. And as part of your portfolio, why wouldn't you do this? I mean, this is such a nice way to tell people, hey, I care about you, and I want to make sure that you have a long-term future that will help. So with that, I just want to say that go out there and check it out. Go to treasury.gov. We get no compensation whatsoever. I'm not a financial advisor. I've had good times and bad times. I've made money. I've lost money. And all I'm going to tell you is that this is one of those things that I highly recommend it. I recommend it to, the person who cuts my hair. I recommend it at conferences when I meet people, primarily because it's just one of those things that I think is such a smart idea. And with that, I want to thank Sandra for being on the call today. And I also want to thank all of you. And please give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe to it. We're going to keep bringing this kind of stuff to you. If you want more of this kind of information, also tell us that. You can also go to the Facebook group and you can ask questions, and Sandra will be curating that. So don't say mean or nasty things, please. She's tough. You can tell that just by her demeanor, but she also, she grew up on a farm, so she knows how to use a cattle prod. I can tell you that. So with that, I want to thank everybody who's joined me live and been on the Raging Verbalist. Right now, we are wrapped up for number 106, and think about what you might do with that money in the future for buying an ibond. Thanks, everybody.